Hello everyone, this is Melissa and welcome to the OpenSolar Podcast, where we cover the inevitable shift into a world powered by sunshine.
That's right, Melissa. Hey everybody, I'm Sophie and we're going to cover the people, the technologies, the policy, everything that's contributing to the acceleration of solar adoption.
We call it the S-curve. Hi, I'm Birchy and we're delighted to have you along for the ride, so let's get into it. So we're live this morning and this evening, but yeah, good to see you, good to join. So obviously this podcast, we wanted to get leaders in the industry on screen, on the mic, just to hear a bit of what's going on, what your view of the past and the future looks like. So I reckon we start with the past. Like you and I worked together, I think it was 20 something years ago, but like, even before that, talk us through the early Nigel with hair, good looking, riding around on his bike, getting into solar.
Oh, really? I've got to go back now. No, look, the short version, I guess, is that it all started with a tomato because I was in Germany backpacking with my girlfriend when I was 18. And I'd never really thought about energy before. And we went to buy some supplies and there were some tomatoes for sale in a place in Germany. And yeah, we were tripping around in our combi and in the mid 80s, and we went to buy some tomatoes, and they warned us in German that some of them might be radioactive, and I went, what are you talking about? And that ended up being a warning because Chernobyl had blown up, and it was the first time energy had ever really hit me in the gob. And gone, you might die from energy if you eat these radioactive tomatoes, but they're on special. So, it was a bit of a moment for me where I really sort of went, energy has a cost, really does have a cost. And anyway, long time later, I found my way into the industry to try and help, solve problems rather than create them.
Amazing. So there's funny all the different ways in. That's a new one to me though, the low cost radioactive tomato. So you were involved, it was SolarX, wasn't it? Northern Beaches, pre-BP. Tell us about that kind of first role and what you were up to back then.
It was, I started in 92 with a bunch of hippies in Nimbin who remain my oldest. Rainbow Power Company, still going today, almost 40 years later after they started, and they were true solar pioneers globally. And I spent 5 wonderful years with them. I actually do a bit of work for them still, and help them out around the fringes. Now it's funny the way the world works. We might come back to that, but I spent 5 wonderful years with them doing stuff all over Australia and all over the world, all off grid, of course, because there was no such thing as on grid. And then I went to BP Solar, who were based in Brookvale on the northern beaches of Sydney, and they had a tiny little manufacturing facility there where they made solar panels, which was part of the global BP group, and I spent 11 wonderful years with BP Solar, and some of them with you, mate.
Yeah, exactly. So we're going back. This is 2002-3 when I landed in Australia. But so we're talking, you were late 90s, and just the world back then. I'm looking at the numbers here. 500,000 panels per year was the sort of production. We had about 366 parts per million of CO2, so that's obviously a lot better than the 425 we have today. And we're talking about a tiny little industry. 50,
tiny,
60, 70.
Tiny, handmade. They were literally people there with soldering irons.
Yeah, it's insane. Megawatts globally in Australia. I mean, I landed at BP Solar. We're in this module factory. Do you remember what was the capacity? Like 25 megawatts or something?
Yeah, around 25. Yep.
And the global industry is maybe like 150, kind of that sort of level.
Yeah.
Like I got to UNSW and I remember the textbook with Jeff Stapleton and Martin Green, Stuart Wenham and Muro Watt and all those guys on the cover. And it was the extraordinary growth of solar from 50 to 100 megawatts over the last 5 years. And here we are,
This is per year. This is per year, not per month or per day or per week, per year.
Insane. And now we're talking about billions of solar panels, 100,000 megawatts, 600,000 megawatts, 600 gigawatts, and now getting into terawatt territory. So pretty extraordinary.
That's right. And terawatts installed around the world. And, what's the next number above terawatts? of
Yeah,
energy.
exactly. Yeah. So I mean, like the maths that we've done, like 50% of the world's energy will come from solar by 2035. You get up to about 5-6 terawatts of global production if we carry on growing at 25% a year for another 10 years. Crazy.
Yep. It's the bit I remember most fondly actually was when in the days when you were hovering around at BP Solar with me and Malcolm Turnbull came through and the boss said, "Oh, we need some forecasts, Nige, for Birchy to impress Turnbull, who was the energy minister at the time, and we were trying to impress him, and the boss kept coming to me going, pump him up. Just, we'll do more than that in another 5 years. And I'm going, how's this going to happen, Mark? We're never going to get to these numbers. What are you talking about? And, we blew them all out of the water.
Yeah. True. So we were lucky. We were stuck in that office. I was in there for like a couple of days. We built the feed-in tariff model. This is in like 2004, 2005. We built the feed-in tariff model for the first Aussie feed-in tariffs, justified by the fact that these panels created all these other values for the community, for the environment, and peak energy during the middle of the day and all that good stuff. And it was like that kind of really exciting policy defining kind of period for the industry. It was fun, wasn't it? We had a great team back then.
It was profound. It was like we were starting to go from, okay, solar's cool and it solves a bunch of problems, but it's completely unaffordable and it's only for the people who've got, crazy amounts of money or want to do something really cool, to the point where we went, hang on, it makes sense. It's starting to really financially make sense. We can see how this actually stacks up financially, and we can see different models and different ways of extracting those values. And Birchy, I actually just got off a call with one of my clients who I'm helping to build a new model, and it's the same moment of excitement that you and I were having all those years ago now, but they're just finding more ways to extract value and more, now it's wholesale trading and it's sucking energy in and out of batteries and it's controlling electric vehicles and it's turning loads on and off, and it's all this stuff that we couldn't even see back then. But it's just got better and better and better.
Yeah, that's the next phase, isn't it? This kind of smart trading with the grid and the smart grid and how solar and consumers participate in that, which is, let's talk about that in a second. Can I go back to just the path from, we're talking like $5-6 a watt, probably US dollars back then for a residential system. And now we're at basically $1 a watt for a solar system, residential in Australia. Do you want to just describe what did the Aussies get right? And how do we scale? How do we get that cost down? How do we get to 33% penetration in Australia?
Ooh, that's a really good question. So I think what Australia did get right, and maybe if we start at the high level, some of those policy decisions, like the ones you were talking about, that you were helping to form up in politicians' minds, like Malcolm Turnbull, when you start to form those ideas up in politicians' minds and they set regulations or feed-in tariffs in that case, suddenly consumers just go, this makes sense, I'm in. And so some of those early feed-in tariffs that we had were fundamental in getting demand rolling. And then Aussies being, entrepreneurial and up for a challenge and bathed in sunlight, we all kind of went, yeah, this looks great. And we all dived in and, we went from having, when I started out, there was literally about 30 solar companies in Australia. And one of the biggest things that we got right was we built an industry. We built now more than 7,000 solar companies. A lot have come and gone over that time. But 7,000 solar companies and literally 40,000 people working in those companies, plus, another 50 or 100,000 sort of in associated industries. So we built an industry. That's what we got right. And as we went along, we also worked out that we needed some rules and regulations around that. We needed to keep the thieves and the black. We need to try and keep the thieves and the blackguards out. We need to make sure things are safe. We need to learn those lessons as we go. So we built an accreditation program and a training program. And over time, that has just continued and it continues to this day to evolve into different regulations and standards. So I think we got at the high level, we got the regulatory stuff right. Then we got, go get 'em Aussie attitude and business people saying there's a way to make an honest buck here and build a business, small and large, mostly small businesses in Australia.
Yeah.
I think like 75% small.
Yeah.
And that was, that was Aussies going, oh, there's another way for me to diversify my electrical business here or my plumbing business or whatever it is and diversify into doing some solar as well. And it continues to grow to this day. So I think we got those things right. I'm struggling. All the things that we got wrong keep just flooding into my head because we got plenty wrong along the way. But,
Yeah. Well, I think we're probably self-critical as well, which is probably healthy.
Yeah.
It keeps you on
Yeah.
your toes. But I agree with all that, and I love the small business play. Like this is about thousands of small businesses in the community selling, installing, local jobs, local customers. It's a pretty wonderful, contrast to big nuclear or big coal, like lots of jobs spread around the country. Can I add one thing? Because one thing that's on my mind right now, just in the week before we're recording this, we've got the news out of the States that the House in the States has passed a bill that says no more tax credits. We basically don't want a distributed solar market. We don't want solar. It's about nuclear, coal, fossil fuels. The problem we have in the States is it costs $3.74 on average, looking at our open solar data, to install a residential system. So that's like over 3 times
What?
as much as Australia. It's insane for
Wow.
the same panel, the same 7 kilowatt system. It's insane.
Oh my goodness.
And so I've looked at all the income statements of an Aussie company versus a US, and the biggest delta is there's about 2 to 3 months of work that you have to do in the States once you've sold the system to get it to the point where you can install it through the permitting.
Right.
And in Australia, you can sell it. So I'd add to your list of what Australia got right. You can sell it and you can install it the next day, the next week. Usually it's in the next week or two when the customer's kind of ready and you've got the products ready to install.
Yep.
Whereas in the States, you've got this kind of, 2 to 3 months. I mean, it can be up to 5 or 6 months to get a permit in some jurisdictions.
Oh
And
my
there are
goodness.
16,000 jurisdictions now, each with their own different process.
What?
So that's the problem in the US. So I guess I just want for our US listeners, we got lots of folk I think will listen to this in the States. They look at Australia, they see 33% penetration. It's like, can you so they don't think I'm the only mad person here. Can you just remind them, yes, you can sell a system and install it the next day in Australia most of the time.
Oh yeah. There. I mean, in the heydays of getting these mechanisms right and getting incentives right, the downside is we've gone from boom to bust a little bit, right? But we've always we call it the solar coaster. We love it dearly, and we go up and down and up and down and up and down. But in some of the boom periods, and we'll come back to the biggest boom period that we're about to land in by the looks of it, I have seen solar companies ramp up to phenomenal scale where they're doing thousands of systems a month, and they have I actually just got a same client who I was talking to before. Actually, one of the biggest challenges that they're now facing is, okay, they've got this idea, they're going to roll it out, and I'm helping them actually to build out the business systems behind it to allow them to manage, bill, maintain, service, and we will build that out in scale so that they are literally flipping sales, on a daily basis. There's no reason it shouldn't be like that. There's no reason.
Yeah. Well, that's what we got to get right in the States. Ultimately, if you lose the tax credit, and we're losing net metering now, so you don't have net metering in Australia either. We had the feed-in tariff to get us started, to get the scale in the industry. But now it's just gross metered, so you've got increasing battery deployments and battery attachment to make sure you self-consume most of that energy, and it just works, right? The economics is saving customers, 50+% on their energy bill. So yeah, that's what we got to get right in the States. Okay, so should we talk batteries? Because the big news.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, tell us what are your thoughts? Describe just for people who aren't aware, what the program does in Australia and how it's going to impact in your view.
Yep. So we just had an election only a few weeks ago, and the government who won, who was already in power, and so they were re-elected, they made a promise to voters on a battery support program. And so what they did was they said, in a nutshell, they're going to subsidise anywhere between kind of 30 to 50% of the cost of a battery in Australia. And Australia is already a very low price market for, all solar components. They've announced a subsidy, but it's not a cash grant. What it does is it uses the same mechanism that we've been using with solar panels for the last 10 or 15 years, whereby there is a tradable certificate, kind of like the renewable certificates that you got in the US or used to have in the US. But we have a scheme that works really, really well, and it goes down every year, reflecting the declining cost of solar and the lessening need for support. It's a consistent price. There's a stable market for it. There are traders for it. Everyone understands it. It's delivered at point of sale, and then there's an efficient mechanism for installers to get their money back out of the tradable market, sometimes in the best case within a couple of days. So the cash flow works. And so what they've done very cleverly with lots of work from the government is applied exactly the same mechanism to batteries now. And so there is an upfront discount that is then it becomes a tradable certificate over time. And so the net result of that, and it's pretty staggering numbers actually, but there's no upper cap on the scheme. In short, most estimates are around 1 to 1.5 million residential batteries will go in over the next 5 years or so. We currently do I think last year we did about 60 or 70,000 residential batteries in Australia. It's been growing slowly but steadily. But we'll move to, in fact, I put a carton of beer on it the other day in a bet with someone that we will be at 250,000 batteries at the end of this next financial year, and it'll grow from there. And so it is epic. It's worth billions and billions and billions of dollars in trade right across a whole lot of sectors, across hundreds of thousands of Aussies, both in savings and jobs and employment and everything else. So it is set to be the most valuable rebate scheme Australia has ever seen.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. And for the international folks, financial year in Australia is the end of June. So Nigel will be either commiserating or celebrating a case of beer in about a year's time. And the other number I think is important is I think there's about 10 million homes in Australia, population of 25 million roughly. And so that we're talking about 10 to 15% battery penetration in just a few years, right? Probably 3 or 4 years, that kind of thing.
Oh, listen, I've got a couple of brand new statistics for you because, traditionally 20 to 50% battery attachment rate is about where Australia runs right now, right? So it's up to that level now. Depending on where you are, and there's been a few little state rebates and stuff. So it's been, some places it's been quite good. Some companies are really, really good at it too, better than others, and some stay away from it. So 20 to 50% attachment rate of the number of batteries compared to the number of solar systems. Last month in Australia, in one state, the battery attachment rate was 250%, right? And so what has already happened is basically everyone who was going to buy a solar system or looking at buying a solar system said, sure, I'll take a battery. There's a 30 to 50% discount. Now's a great time. Yeah, you talked me into it. Okay, great, let's add a battery. But there's 5 million existing solar owners, the majority of whom don't have batteries, and they went, hang on, I got solar. I love my solar. It's paid for itself in 4 or 5 years. I'm making money. I can reinvest some of that money into a battery. I'm ringing the guy who whacked the solar in and saying, can you add a battery? 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 And so we have leapfrogged into this massive program of interest, not only solving the ongoing future problems or helping future customers, but already digging back into those older systems and adding storage to them to extract more value and make it better for everyone.
Yeah, amazing. I'm a kind of a skeptic generally on subsidies. Just that's my kind of because I've seen them switch off in countries when governments change and it kills the industry. The thing I like about this, as you said, is it declines. So if we can get through the scaling up of the battery installation business across Australia, have it go to to zero over the next few years, and then we're kind of back in that safe place again. I think
then it ends up being an organic market, and away you go. And that's almost where we're at with solar. The rebates on solar, they really help, of course. And it's not a rebate, just for the American listeners. It's a tradable certificate, but it ends up feeling like a rebate because it's an upfront discount. But it's the better of the subsidy schemes, I think.
Yeah. So, Nigel, you mentioned you're helping yet another company. So, for those that don't know Nigel, which is not many people outside of in Australia, rather, Nigel's helped so many people grow their business, shape their business, an advisor, as a friend. There's a podcaster, as just a general legend around the industry. What are you doing now? So this battery stuff opens up a whole new intelligence, right? And as you said, different revenue streams for customers. How are you kind of plugging into that? What are you doing day job today? Tell us more about all that.
So my day job for part of the week is working for a company that makes a bit of hardware, and we make software, and we orchestrate solar, batteries, and loads. And by when I say orchestrate, I mean, is now a good time to buy? Is now a good time to sell? Let's get you into the wholesale market. Is now a good time to turn that load on or off? Have you got excess solar? Let's not spill it where we get no value. Let's divert that into your electric vehicle or into your battery or into your hot water system or whatever we need to do. And so that's kind of my main day job. And then around the fringes, I also work with a bunch of other companies who are just doing their own thing, their own way, trying to innovate ways into this market. And so, this afternoon I heard about an amazing new mechanism to try and overcome some of the barriers for a certain segment of of society in Australia, people who might not otherwise be able to access solar. And they had some really clever ways. I can't give too much away, but they got some really clever ways that they think they're going to be able to address those problems. Tomorrow morning, I'm meeting with another mob who are developing other monitoring solutions and engineering solutions to help companies to do this scaling up. So they offer engineering services. And this morning I started my day helping one of the industry associations who were running training and educational events for installers around the country. We've just come back from Hobart after a road show over the last 4 months. So that's a typical day.
Typical day, never a dull moment. And to wrap up, Nigel, give us a little bit of the future view. Where do you think, maybe the global view, Australia view, where do you think we're heading over the next kind of 5-10 years? Can we get to 50%? What would be the things stopping us get to 50% of all our energy from solar or more?
So number one's unstoppable. Can't stop it. That's been demonstrated over and over and over again. Solar is now the cheapest way to generate energy in humankind's history. It has never been cheaper, and of course it's wonderfully clean. Generally, so it's wonderful. But what we're also seeing around the edges is now we're seeing batteries have that same cost decline as we scale up. We're seeing EVs have a cost decline as we scale up. We're seeing computing power and software applications become cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and more powerful always. And so what is going to happen around the rest of the world is what is already happening here in Australia, and that is that our grid network, our generation and our transmission and our distribution and the local generation on people's rooftops and in their cars are all morphing together. And we're already building tools to make that automated and simple for users to play in a whole variety of ways and save money and help the environment and use this modern technology in fabulous, fabulous ways. And Australia's really lucky. We're a sort of small market, so we get people chuck technologies down here and have ideas down here, and they can test it in a small little market. And if it works here, it'll work anywhere because it's a tough geographic and climate environment. So, we are really the canary in the coal mine for the rest of the world. This stuff is, it's happening in many other places as well. But yeah, we've got some extremely cool stuff coming, particularly around network and grid and the integration of very, very large scale generation and distributed generation, which can be variable. All of that now needs to be orchestrated and, come down to Australia, I'll buy you a beer and tell you all about it.
That's the best offer I've heard, and I want to get back there again soon. I'm going to try. I was talking to Abby Hopper, who runs SEIA, the Solar Energy Industry Association, on Friday last week, and I was like, if we could only get a plane load of people from the policy and government and industry side to spend just a couple of days, let's say in South Australia.
But barbecue at my place. Virgie, barbecue at my place. They're all welcome. Bring them here. Snags on the barbie. Beach is close by. We'll drink some beer. We'll solve it.
That'd be amazing. You got to see it. You sometimes it's really hard to see and feel what $1 a watt next day solar looks like until you, with a battery on now included. Like you got to see it to believe it.
Yeah. No, and it's pretty interesting. I've just come off a bunch of travel around the country, visiting dealers and doing some of these roadshows and stuff, and talking to all these guys and saying, "So how's it going? The battery rebate's been announced, but unfortunately, you can't get the money until July 1, so it's tricky for consumers." And looking at how these businesses have innovated and gone, "Oh no, I'll find a way to get that customer to sign up and play a deposit, so I get them in the queue, so I can deliver on time and get them the savings straight away from the solar, and then I'll turn the battery on July 1 I'll get you your rebate on that, and away we'll go." So yeah, it's, it is a very, actually really, really exciting time in Australia.
Yeah, it's
except
amazing.
It's winter.
Well,
it's winter.
Well,
so,
I mean, yeah, your winter.
give it a few months.
I do my winter in England. I'll tell you what winter is, Nigel. I'm not, no tears here for you there.
The ocean pools. The ocean pool has dropped to 15 degrees, Birchy. We're all shivering.
It seems like we just hit 14, 15 here in the water in England. Like this is the middle of summer. Yeah. No tears. But South Australia, I just wonder if give us any numbers you got, Nice. But like right now in South Australia, we're hitting what kind of penetration and what kind of percent of generation from distributed solar, from residential?
From distributed and residential solar, we're over 100% on a regular basis. We've gone days and days and weeks of exporting energy out of that state. South Australia.
There must have been blackouts. There must have been blackouts, right? All that solar surely.
No, I mean we've had weather events, we've had some blackouts, we've had some technological challenges to overcome around the ability to curtail systems and dynamically adjust system performance. We've got some of the most advanced dynamic solar control systems and regulations in place in the world in South Australia, so that we can ramp that solar up and down if we need to. We can adjust to grid conditions or for emergencies or whatever we need to do, and it just works. It just works, and we've demonstrated that, and we have postcodes that what's it called in the US? It's not a postcode. Is it a postcode? Zip code. It's a zip code. We have zip codes in South Australia where the solar rooftop penetration is 100%. There's just nowhere left. Everyone just went, "Yep, makes heaps of sense."
and now we're installing battery management systems and other cool stuff behind that. But
that's right.
So this is another point. So we're in Northern Hemisphere right now. Australia is the sort of this kind of beacon. In Europe, you've got a market that went up 80% per year for 2 years, but is now down about 30%. And it's tough.
Wow.
When small businesses are down 30%, that's a really tough market. In the States, you're down 30% in a Biden administration, which supports climate and clean tech. And now we're looking at Trump trying to kill it. 3,500% tariffs on panels, possible loss of ITC over the next couple of months. It's pretty brutal. So I guess I would love people to hear, with this experience that you've had, and I've seen some of in Australia, that it can be done, right? The mega trend of falling costs is real.
Absolutely.
The battery smart come in, give you those new revenue streams, as long as you don't hike tariffs on the hardware, because most of the jobs are local in installation and sales. So You know, like just accept low cost technology is going to come in from overseas and don't have too much of a problem with that. Maybe a bit of diversification is healthy, but you know, don't make it the number one policy, because you're going to get low cost EVs, low cost batteries, low cost panels in Australia. In the States right now, there's a 100% tariff on EVs, 3,500% on Southeast Asian panels. Like it's just they're blocking solar getting in and batteries. So that's, I think, so no tariffs, a lot of innovation. I've heard there's a great summary of just like, and I think that I see that in the States, I see it in Europe, I see it everywhere. It's a lovely kind of fundamental piece of our industry is the people involved are super creative, hardworking, and entrepreneurial. And then it's just this tariff, this permitting thing. Like, don't make it super hard to go from sale to install. Like, just standardize that.
It literally doesn't have to be. I mean, we have one of the highest rooftop solar penetration rates in the world per capita, and it's done safely. And it is done to we're highly regulated. You know, it's one of the biggest costs on the solar business in Australia, but it's not months of delay. You know, you've got some hoops to jump through, but they're for good reason. It needs to be good. It needs to perform. It needs to be serviced well. It needs to be sold ethically. You know, we've got all those kinds of mechanisms in place to make sure that, you know, you just get a basic regulatory framework and, you know, boom, off you go. No worries. Let's whack solar on every roof. You're holding me up, actually. Yeah. I was ready to wrap more. We're gonna get more solar out, Birchy.
Well, you know that sales thing. If you've sold them, don't just stop there. You've already sold me. You got me. I'm gonna go and rent a blue solar powered, hydrogen fueled jumbo 747. I'm gonna fly people from the United States to your backyard, whatever your nearest airstrip is, and we're gonna drink all your beer from your fridge, and we're gonna basically see how it is done and export that to the States and export a lot of it around the world. Nigel, thanks for the offer. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Can't wait. And by the way, we don't ever run out of beer, so it's okay.
It's the infinite beer supplies. That tapped into the local brewery. Love it. Nigel, thanks so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Thanks on behalf of all the people you've helped in the industry. A lot of whom are kind of open solar users now, cranking away, building their businesses. You've helped a lot of them get off the ground, and you've just been a real hero and a great friend of mine. So thanks for joining us, and thanks for everything you're doing.
You're most welcome.
Take it easy, Nigel. Thanks.